Well, I realized that the mapping step in the last video was a little challenging to see, so I thought I'd make another video showing just that step. Grab your washable markers so you can map along with me. Here we go. All right, we are starting with the largest prominence in the wrist. That's going to be the distal or bottom edge of the ulna, or distant edge of the ulna. It's going to be a round projection. Feel it with your fingers and then encircle it completely. Then we can move across the transverse to its little similar kind of wrist bone partner. That's the distal end of the radius. It's sharper and narrower, but does lay on that same horizontal line, so it's pretty easy to find. Once you've found both those landmarks, you can designate where the joint is, where the bones meet the carpal bones. Yeah, you can even sometimes see it even as a little bit of a wrinkle on the surface of your skin, depending on your age. But it'll fall pretty much right in the center of those circle landmarks. So if you draw that through as a horizontal line that hits the center of both of those shapes, you can also pull it around like a bracelet so it meets on the other side. Pretty connected line. All right. The next thing we'll do is we'll find the base or kind of finishing edge of the cluster of carpal bones. Remember what I said to do is to pinch those first two landmarks that you had without releasing your grip at all. I want you to pull your fingers down until they stop. They kind of hit on the metacarpal bones. We sort of feel them on either side of the palm of the hand. The base of those carpal bones is going to be right at that spot that you get stuck and would have to loosen your grip to be able to continue to move down the hand shape. So it ends up being like, inch and a half usually distance, and should fall as a pretty parallel line to the first wrist shape that you made. All right, the next landmarks that we are going to map are the distal or distant end of the metacarpal bones. Those are going to be kind of our first knuckle shapes that we see in our hands. Making a fist makes them shine up really kind of bright and white. You can feel them with your fingers first to really find the knobby joint, and then encircle the entirety of each shape. Kind of looks like I'm making don't forget your thumb, kind of looks like I'm making a tough guy sort of glove, circling all of those knuckle shapes. The ends of both the metacarpal bones and the phalange bones, they widen and get a little bit knobbier at the joint. So you're seeing that mass that spans both the kind of bone that leads to it and the bone that follows. The joint between where those two bones meet falls right in the center of that mapping, so you can connect a line through the center of each of those jointed circles. You can also draw from center of your thumb back up to the center. You're going to feel like you're taking a new direction on that, and when you splay your hands, you'll really see that you were. You travel a very different direction to get to the thumb, but you do want to connect it as a map shape. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use the mapping we have so far to define some planes in the hands. We'll be defining the top plane of the back of the hand, which is called the dorsum, and then we will define the thenar plane, or the plane that directs us to the thumb. All right, so to claim the top plane of the dorsum, we're going to start at the outside edge of our pinky knuckle mapping, or that metacarpal bone, we're going to stretch a line that connects down to the outside edge of our ulna mapping. Knocked my camera a little, but I think it's okay to keep going. All right. Then, and this sometimes helps to sort of make a fist again. The next thing that we're going to do to map the top of the dorsum is we're going to go to what would be the inside edge, so I guess would be far left edge of our pointer knuckle. All right, and we're going to stretch that down to that inside edge of our radial wrist bone. Okay, and so when I make a fist, you can see this line pretty much aligns with the edge of that fist shape from this point of view. And this is a little bit of soft tissue shape extending beyond there, but pretty much to the other edge of the dorsum, which makes it really useful mapping. If I turn to the side, I do need to add one more mark to claim this plane. So from the this far left edge of my thumb knuckle, I will draw the line back, connect it to that left edge of my radial wrist bone, and you can see that the thenar plane, or thumb side plane, really looks very much like a triangle from limit to limit, reaching from knuckle to knuckle. Very much a simplified shape. The dorsum is a slightly irregular trapezoid, so you can connect a trapezoid to a triangle, and that gets you fully through that shape. From here, it gets a whole lot easier. We're just going to go knuckle by knuckle. There's lots of clear landmarks at the joint. First knuckle of our phalanges kind of look like elephant knees to me. We see kind of folds of the loose skin encircle that joint, so you can follow those clues on your own hand. Pretty easily to grab that shape. The second knuckle of each phalange, we can see a more horizontal designation. Of each of those joints. It's a little fold and it starts and stops. If we kind of pull those fingers together, we can see that the limits of those folds in your fingers, kind of showing the joint, do really kind of reach to the edge of the top planes. All right. If we pull a center line through the circled first phalange bones, we can also sort of see that there's an implied arc that sort of reaches across those finger shapes. You can kind of see those relationships. All right. And then before we move to the other side of the hand, we're just going to connect our shapes. So to claim our top planes, we're going to go from edge of our nail. Remember that nail is a little exoskeleton for your fingertip. I'm going to hit to the edge line of the second joint of the phalange, back to the first joint, edge to edge, and then back to the carpal bone. Okay? Sometimes you can get sort of a 2-for-1 deal if you pull your fingers tight, or you can do them individually, but we are going to just draw those edges back, edge to edge, knuckle to knuckle. Don't draw lines through the very center of your fingers. That is where the bones are, but at the skin level, the limits of the knuckles relate so nicely to the limits of the fingers that they're really much better landmarks than kind of thinking about the inside shape of those long bones, although they relate pretty well too. Pulling your fingers close is a good idea. your skin can kind of stretch in different directions, so it'll keep things nice and clear. Don't forget the thumb, either side of the metacarpal bone, up to the edges of the nail. If I pull my fingers together, you can see the drawn lines really relate closely to the limits of the top planes of the fingers. As I start pulling them into more interesting poses, you start noticing how often you are seeing simultaneous planes when you're looking at a hand, and why that's a big part of why drawing a hand is so complicated. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to pull all of our landmarks that we grabbed from the front onto the back and see how they situate themselves on that view of the fingers, and even more interestingly, on the palm. So let's start with our metacarpal bone. This is one of my favorites. So we're going to pull the first metacarpal around. As we pull that line around, you're going to see kind of a natural fold. It's where two kind of surfaces of tissue kind of come together, and we can draw that around. And what's really interesting is we often sort of think about these knuckles as the end of our hand shape, but we also actually have more shape kind of beyond that. Our fingers almost present as smaller when we are looking at the palmar side. So the joint falls in the space of the palm. All right. If we come kind of looking up from here, this is where two tissue shapes meet. It looks like a false joint. It's definitely a landmark that's useful to notice, and you'll definitely be drawing it eventually, but it's not bony, so we don't map that right away. All right, we'll go to the next joint and encircle both of them on our pointer finger, just to really see those joints. You can see they have very clear folds on the palmar side of the hand. So I'm pulling that around. There we go. Woo. All right, and again. Okay. There it is. All right, couple more landmarks to get in our palm. We have the thenar muscle that kind of makes a major shape, and then the hypothenar muscle kind of rounds out there. We end up with a kind of sweet little triangular inset at the bottom that is helpful to simplify to draw. And the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to define the side planes kind of from the palmar side of the hands. I like to do this super efficiently just by pulling my fingers together and drawing a single line that defines the plane on two fingers instead of just one. Sometimes you need to do a little bit of touch up. But if I do that again, pull it all the way up through the fingers. Now you can see I've defined some side planes on my fingers as well. Can you see those? Okay. We'll do it on the outside as well. The best way to do it is just sort of look at the side of your finger and draw that edge down. I don't know if I can get a good view of this, but I'm trying to do the pinky as well. Just give it a little bit of space on the side plane. Sorry, I'm not sure I can get you a really good view there. All right, but then we are mapped. Next, what we'll do is we will use this mapping to make hand drawing more efficient and easier to understand. Tune into the next video for that.